Have you ever wondered where COVID-19 really came from? Now, the generally accepted story is that this global pandemic found its roots in a wet market in Wuhan, China. A virus, they say, that jumped from bats to humans, spiraling quickly out of control. From there, it rapidly spread across the globe, transforming our lives in ways we could never have imagined. But let's scratch beneath the surface. Let's delve beyond the news reports, the medical journals, and the official statements. What if the narrative we've been fed isn't the whole truth? What if there are pieces of the puzzle missing? Just imagine for a moment that there are unseen strings being pulled behind the scenes. Now, I'm not saying it's definitely true, but it's worth pondering, isn't it? So, let's take this journey together. Let's question everything we think we know. But what if I told you there's a theory that suggests something entirely different? Let's delve into the heart of this theory, the Chinese government. Think about it. The Chinese government is known for its meticulous planning and control over its vast population. Is it far-fetched to consider that they might have had a role in the origin of the pandemic? The timing of the outbreak, coinciding with a period of global political unrest, is uncannily perfect. The Chinese government's response to the outbreak was swift, almost too swift. The world watched in awe as they built hospitals in a mere 10 days, quarantined millions of people, and initiated strict lockdown measures. It was a display of power, efficiency, and control that left many countries scrambling to keep up. This swift response begs the question, how could they have been so well prepared? Could it be that they knew what was coming, or even more disturbingly, could they have planned it? Consider the benefits. A global pandemic forces the world into lockdown. The bustling streets of major cities are deserted, businesses are closed, economies are crippled, people are isolated and afraid, the world is at a standstill. And in this chaos, the Chinese government stands strong, ready to extend its influence and power. The pandemic has given them a golden opportunity, an opportunity to advance their interests, to reinforce their control, and to shape the future according to their vision. A vision where China is the new global superpower. Now, we're not saying that the Chinese government is definitely behind the pandemic, but we're asking you to consider the possibilities, to question the narrative that's been presented to us, to think critically about the information we're given and the motivations of those who give it to us. Let's remember, truth is often stranger than fiction. And in a world where power and control are the ultimate prizes, nothing is off the table, not even a global pandemic. Coincidence or a carefully orchestrated plan? With the world in lockdown, what was happening in China? As the pandemic spread like wildfire, bringing nations to their knees, China was the first to implement a stringent lockdown, setting a precedent for the rest of the globe. But what was the real motive behind this drastic measure? Consider this. The Chinese government, renowned for its tight control over its population, enforced an unprecedented lockdown. Millions were confined to their homes, streets were deserted, businesses shuttered. The entire nation was paralyzed, ostensibly to curb the spread of the virus. But was there a dual purpose at play? Let's delve deeper into the rabbit hole. The Chinese government, known for its technological prowess and surveillance capabilities, suddenly had a captive audience. With everyone at home, reliant on digital means for work, education, and communication, the opportunity for data collection was immense. But to what end? Here's where it gets even more intriguing. With the world's attention focused on the pandemic, China had the perfect smokescreen to advance its agenda. Reports of increased activity in disputed territories during the lockdown, of significant technological advancements, of strategic geopolitical moves, all went largely unnoticed, overshadowed by the global health crisis. Now, this isn't to say that the virus wasn't a genuine threat, but could it have been a convenient distraction, a means to an end? Could the lockdown have been a strategic move not just to contain the virus but to execute a hidden agenda? And while we grappled with the pandemic, what was happening behind the scenes? Was the lockdown just a facade, a cover-up for a more sinister plan? A plan that was quietly executed while we were all looking the other way? As we peel back the layers, the plot thickens. The lockdown, it seems, may not have been just about public health. It may have been a calculated move, a chess piece in a larger game, and the question that remains is, what was the true endgame? Could the lockdown have been a smokescreen for something more sinister? These questions remain unanswered, but they certainly warrant our attention. As we move forward, we must keep our eyes open and question everything, because sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. Now let's examine the clues that support this theory. First off, let's focus on the inconsistencies in the official narrative. When the pandemic first broke out, The World Health Organization reported that the virus originated from a seafood market in Wuhan, China. However, later studies suggested that the virus might have been circulating in other parts of China before it was officially reported in Wuhan. Isn't that a bit odd? It's as if the virus was intentionally spread to divert attention away from its real source. Next, let's talk about the unusual activities during the lockdown. While the world was in chaos, trying to grapple with the sudden pandemic, China was surprisingly calm. It was as if they were prepared for this. They quickly implemented strict lockdown measures and managed to control the spread of the virus in record time. While the rest of the world was still struggling, China was back to normal, or at least that's what they wanted us to believe. Furthermore, during the lockdown there were reports of increased activity in certain sectors. The manufacturing industry, for instance, saw a sudden boom. Now, I'm not saying that the pandemic was a calculated move to boost their economy, but it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Another piece of evidence that raises suspicion is the lack of transparency from the Chinese government. Throughout the pandemic, they have been criticized for their lack of transparency and for withholding information. They've been accused of downplaying the severity of the virus and of not sharing crucial data with the rest of the world. This lack of transparency fuels the idea that there might be something more to this pandemic than we're being told. And then there's the matter of the lab in Wuhan. The Wuhan Institute of Virology, to be precise. This lab, which is just a stone's throw away from the seafood market where the virus was said to have originated, specializes in studying coronaviruses. Now, I'm not saying that they intentionally released the virus, but it's a coincidence that's hard to ignore. Lastly, let's not forget about the timing of the outbreak. It happened at a time when the world was already dealing with a lot of issues, from political unrest to economic instability. The pandemic served as the perfect distraction, allowing certain activities to be carried out unnoticed. Each piece of evidence on its own might not mean much, but put together, they paint a very different picture. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and once you start putting the pieces together, you begin to see the bigger picture. And sometimes, the picture that emerges is far more intriguing and possibly more frightening than the one we're presented with. So, what does all this mean? We've journeyed through a maze of questions, connections, lockdowns, and evidence. We've dared to question the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, delved into the intricacies of its supposed connection to the Chinese government, and examined the global lockdown and the evidence that suggests a grander plan at play. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered. First, we challenged the accepted narrative of COVID-19's origins, proposing the possibility of a purposeful release rather than a natural occurrence. We then investigated the alleged ties between this global health crisis and the Chinese government, exploring the theory that the pandemic served as a smokescreen for a clandestine operation. We plunged into the depths of the worldwide lockdown, contemplating its potential role in this speculated plot. We looked at how the lockdown might have been a strategic move to keep us all at home, enabling the execution of a secret plan without public scrutiny. The evidence we've scrutinized, while circumstantial and speculative, invites us to question the narrative we've been presented with. From the sudden emergence of the virus to the unprecedented global response, each piece of the puzzle seems to fit a little too snugly into this grand theory. Despite the speculative nature of this theory, we must remember that it's healthy to question, to probe, to seek out the truth. After all, isn't that the essence of being human? And while we may never definitively prove or disprove this theory, we should continue to ask questions, challenge narratives, and seek the truth wherever it may lead us. In the end, the truth might be stranger than fiction. But one thing is certain, the world will never be the same again.